I never thought my billion-dollar fortune would lead to a heartbreaking plea to save my true love. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The rain poured like tears from the sky, drenching everything in a thick silence. I stood there, heart pounding in my chest, as I held the letter, its edges crumpled from my trembling hands. Each word seemed to scream at me, ripping open wounds I thought had healed. "They need you," it said, "or she's lost, Elena." The name twisted my insides. The woman who lit up my life now lay fighting for hers. The world around me faded. I was in a bubble filled with dread, a wealth of gold around me, yet I felt so poor, so utterly powerless. Memories flooded my mind, her laughter echoing in my dreams, her smile brighter than the noon sun, the way she believed in everything good. Why wasn't I there to protect her? Why was I tied to this gilded cage of success while she battled shadows alone? My family had always warned me, "Wealth draws envy," they said. I brushed it off, blinded by ambition and dreams of grandeur. But now, as I gasped for breath, faced with the truth, I realized how naive I'd been. It wasn't just my fortune at stake, it was the love of my life trembling on the brink. Friends had stood by me, clinking glasses, celebrating milestones, but in moments like this, their smiles felt hollow. How could they know my pain? My secret? The news had come abruptly. A mysterious call from an unknown number, a quiet voice breaking the news that Elena was in danger. "You must come quickly," they warned, an urgency in their tone that sent chills down my spine. Crowds of hushed whispers and glances from people felt like daggers aimed at my wealth, me past mistakes. They knew who I was, a billionaire reluctant to connect. But did they know my heart? Desperation clawed at me. I raced towards the hospital, each red light a reminder that I was running out of time. The world blurred outside, flashes of neon lights and honking cars flickered past. My soul felt like a jagged piece of glass, cutting deep. Would I arrive too late? As I burst through the double doors of the intensive care unit, the sterile smell hit me, an aroma of despair and waiting. I looked for her. The rhythmic beeping of machines echoed my racing heartbeat. I found her, lying there. Pale, frail, like a ghost of the vibrant woman I adored. My throat tightened. I stepped closer, my heart aching, fear clawing at my conscience. Would she recognize me? Would she even remember the man who let her down? I leaned in, whispering into her ear, hoping the love I poured into those words could reach her. "Elena, please, I need you to fight." There was no response, just silence. I could hear my own breaths, the whispers around us, the world outside moving on, as if my universe had stopped. And then, just as I began to believe it was all slipping away, a voice behind me shattered my hopes. "She only has one chance. You must choose." I turned, heart in my throat, looking into the eyes of a stranger. What choice? What did they mean? The gravity of their words fell hard. Choices. Sacrifices. Would I be the one to save her? What would I have to give up? I stood frozen, facing an impossible decision. The weight of my wealth pressed down on my shoulders like an anchor. Could I really buy her time? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Shadows tightened around me in the sterile room, each passing second a gentle reminder of the choices I'd have to make, and the crushing reality that Elena's life hung in the balance. The stranger's gaze bore into mine, demanding an answer from depths of uncertainty. "What do you mean?" I stammered, my voice hoarse as I wrestled with the implications. They gestured towards Elena, whispering with intensity, "A transplant, her only hope. But we need the funds faster than our conventional means allow." Time is not a luxury we have. The weight of the words settled like a stone in my stomach. Desperation clawed at the edges of my mind, and for a moment, I felt a stirring of anger. How could this be my fault? I had worked tirelessly for everything I owned, and yet here I stood, far removed from any kind of safety net when it mattered most that I could sense pity in the eyes of the stranger, a flicker of hope beyond despair, but I remained frozen, grappling with the paradox of my existential life built on the very power I now questioned. The hospital felt like a labyrinth spinning around me, each corridor a reminder of how far I had strayed from what truly mattered. And yet, as I stood at the precipice, debating the value of a life, my mind flickered to unexpected kindness from moments past. Help from unfathomable sources had always surfaced, people pulling together, friendships forged in adversity. Perhaps I wasn't entirely alone in this fight. Just then, a soft hand gripped my arm. I turned to see an elderly woman, her skin weathered but her eyes full of compassion. "I heard your words to her," she said, her voice smooth like silk against the chaos. "Love is a force of nature. Don't let despair cloud your strength. Fight for her." Those words wrapped around my heart, igniting a tender spark of hope amid the heartache. I realized that I didn't have to shoulder this journey in solitude. "But what can I do?" I begged, practically desperate for a sign. Too late, the elderly woman smiled gently, her gaze unwavering. "You fight, dear. You fight with whatever you have. Reach your hand out to those who care, who understand. Don't let fear control your destiny. Money can only buy more time if the heart is willing to break for it." That I nodded slowly, her words burrowing into my consciousness. A fire ignited within me. The quiet resilience of those who had stared into the abyss and still found their way back was a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Determination surged through me. This wasn't just about wealth or desperation, it was about love and the fabric of our shared existence. With a newfound sense of urgency, I pulled out my phone, scrolling frantically through contacts, hoping to find someone who could help. My fingers hovered over names I once revered, the same companions who whispered yes when standing beside me in palatial rooms celebrating my achievements. Their laughter felt hollow now. Would they understand? Would they lend a lifeline when my need was so vital? "Please," I murmured into the device, dialing the number that had become familiar yet increasingly distant. "I need you." Each ring echoed through the silence, building a crescendo of hope and dread. "Come on, pick up," I whispered, anxiety weaving through my veins. When the line connected, relief washed over me like a tide. "This is Eric," my friend's vibrant voice surged through the receiver, weaving life back into my weary heart. "Eric," I hesitated. Do I tell him everything? Would he still see me as the captain of my fate with the world at my feet, or as the broken man attempting to gather the pieces of the life he'd once taken for granted? "I need help." "It's Elena." That he paused, silence ringing heavy like an unspoken vow. "What happened?" "I'm on my way." Before I could muster a response, he hung up, and suddenly the storm inside me began to settle. As I slipped the phone away, I caught movement beyond the glass doors of the ICU. Nurses rushed past, faces grim. I held my breath, dread clawing its way back up to settle in my throat. That's when the door burst open, the doctor stepping inside, a clipboard in hand, tension spilling from his features like ink from a broken pen. "We need to discuss serious options," he announced, his voice low and steady yet tinged with urgency. "There's been a complication." My heart plummeted, crashing into a chasm of despair. Complications? The word ricocheted in my mind as I searched for a way to understand. An inkling of hope still glimmered in the corners, but fear gripped my chest like an iron cuff. I took a deep breath, my resolve whispering reassurances. Regardless of complications, I would stand guard at the door of possibility. "In her name, I will sacrifice everything," I vowed softly, embracing the echo of the elderly woman's words. But in that moment of resolve, a new fear stirred within me. Just how far was I willing to go, and would I have to face losses that would haunt my soul forever? As silence enveloped the room once again, I braced myself for the storm ahead, the pounding of hope and dread mashing against one another, waiting for a new moment to unfold. And as the doctor's next words hovered in the air, a knot tightened in my gut. This battle was far from over. The sterile air felt thick, oppressive, as the doctor's gaze searched mine, ready to peel back the layers of uncertainty. "We discovered a secondary issue with Elena," he said, each word measured, staggering in its weight. "Her body has been rejecting the medication. She'll need immediate intervention, including a rare blood type that is next to impossible to source quickly." Each syllable crashed into my chest, the enormity of the doctor's revelation suffocating the fragile flicker of hope that had ignited moments before. "What do we do?" I asked, the desperation spilling from my lips like a prayer. The doctor's brow furrowed, his expression a mix of professionalism and empathy. "You'll need to reach out to the community. If there is anyone with her blood type, we need to act immediately." "Community," I echoed, a bitter taste forming on my tongue. There was so much distance between me and those I had once considered friends. I wasn't just asking for help, I was looking for a lifeline in a sea of forgotten connections. Yet as fear tangled within me, the memory of the elderly woman's warmth coalesced into a bubble of courage. "What type does she need?" I demanded, squeezing my fists for strength. "Oh dash," he replied, the urgency pulsing in his voice. "It's rare, but if you can mobilize it'll do it," I interrupted, newfound purpose igniting determination in my veins. I was no longer standing on the sidelines, I was diving into the chaos, ready to claw at every connection I could. As the doctor detailed the logistics, I could feel my heart racing, each beat echoing my will to act. I shot off text messages, hoping beyond hope that the connections forged through past accomplishments would spill into a chorus of solidarity. "Help needed. Urgent. Elena." "Oh, blood type," I typed fervently, pressing send, feeling the chill of sweat forming on my brow. I turned to the nurse. "What time is it?" "Just past 7, she replied, eyes filled with the slightest glimmer of compassion. Minutes probed, each tick of the clock amplifying the tension gripping my chest. I ran my fingers through my hair, staring down the corridor, hoping someone, anyone, would rush through those doors with a helping hand. In that anguished limbo, the nearby lull gave way to a little girl's laughter, breaking through my reverie. I turned to see another elderly woman who sat on a bench, holding the girl's hand. Her face was illuminating, painted with warmth as they shared a moment of joy amidst the containers of heartache surrounding us. I had nearly forgotten that laughter could still exist in places like this. "Are you okay?" the elderly woman asked me softly, her voice laced with concern. A flicker of familiarity mirrored back at me. I shook my head, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "My girlfriend is in critical condition. I'm trying to find someone with the right blood type for her. I don't know where to turn." Her eyes filled with kindness, she squeezed the girl's hand and stood. "Come with me. I have an idea." My heart surged with profound hope as I followed her into a brightly lit waiting area. She motioned to a group of people seated together, a mix of ages chatting quietly, exchanging coffee cups and glances. "These are my neighbors. We often reach out to each other when things get tough. You never know what connections can do." The realization struck me like a bolt of lightning. Community existed, and it was just waiting for the right voice to begin the call. I approached them with the urgency boiling in my chest, stating my plea with sincerity. Each face turned towards me, the power of shared experience binding us together. "Please," I began, my voice tilting with raw emotion, "I know we don't know each other, but my Elena, she needs your help." I detailed everything, pouring out my soul in a rush, revealing the depths of my desperation. "If anyone here has blood or knows someone who does." As I finished, the faces shifted. A young man rose, his face flushed with determination. "I'm he said squarely, "I can help." My breath caught, a wave of relief surging through me, holding that glimmer of hope. Like a lifebuoy tossed into a stormy sea, just as gratitude spilled from my lips, another voice broke through. A woman in her 30s stepped forward. "I can help too. I'm The group stirred, a resolve settling over them as faces exchanged looks of empathy and strength. In that moment, life blossomed where darkness had threatened to take hold, rapidly bridging the gap between isolation and connection, weaving bonds that transcended silence and solitude. But before I could embrace that swelling wave of gratitude, the doctor rushed back into the waiting area, his expression sharp, collecting my attention. "We need you, now. Are they ready?" My heart raced. "No time to waste. We need to coordinate testing now." He turned, and amidst the chaos, the elderly woman's encouraging gaze captured my attention once more, grounding me amid the whirlwind. As the doctor led us through the emergency route, dread clenched my gut once more. Despite the miraculous kindness surrounding me, Elena was still fighting her own uphill battle. And as I followed the ebb and flow of uncertainty, I stole glances back at the people who had rallied so quickly, the connection brimming with compassion igniting within me. Just then, my phone vibrated sharply in my pocket, pulling me back to the forefront of reality. I fished it out quickly, eyes widening as Eric's name flashed across the screen. "Please, not now," I whispered, my heart thudding like a drum, fearing he might have news I wasn't ready to hear, but I could not ignore him. So I answered, my voice shaking, "Eric, something's come up that you need to know." His voice trembled slightly, stealing my breath and centering the storm within. "It's about Elena. There's something in her medical history that she never told you." Each word he spoke echoed like a time bomb in my mind, unexpected, shocking, and undeniably, painfully real. In that moment, surrounded by newfound allies, the ground shifted beneath my feet. While they prepared to fight for Elena's life, a chilling dread wrapped around my heart. What if the truth was far darker than our current peril? What if all this effort, this chain of goodwill, hinged upon secrets I was not ready to face? As the world around me pressed on, I took a deep breath and braced myself for the truth. The sterile walls of the hospital faded into a blur as I clutched my phone, Eric's voice tethering me to a hidden reality I scarcely dared to confront. My surroundings grew dim, as the weight of his words pressed against my chest, each syllable an urgent reminder that the canopy of hope was as thin as gossamer, fragile and easily torn. "What do you mean she has a secret?" I whispered, tension crawling along my spine. The bustling nurses and anxious families receded into the background. It was just Eric and me suspended in a moment heavy with implications. "Listen," he continued, his voice low and urgent. "I found some old files from her doctors. They indicate that Elena might have a hereditary condition. It could change everything." A shiver ran through me. What kind of condition? My heart raced. Was this why her body was rejecting the medication? Was this the reason she hadn't confided in the fear of burdening me with her pain? My mind raced through memories of her, the way she'd smile even when her eyes betrayed hints of fatigue, the moments she would brush off potential illnesses as mere inconveniences. "It's genetic." It put her at risk for complications during treatments, particularly with her rare blood type. "I don't know if she knew how severe it could be," Eric said, his tone tinged with something akin to regret. Panic clawed at my throat. "Then why didn't she tell me? Why wouldn't she let me in?" "I think she wanted to protect you. You know how hard it is for her to deal with this," he said, and I could sense the conflict behind his words. "But if that's true, if she was aware even a little bit, we need to make sure she gets the best treatment immediately. And if her medical history could offer a clue to her reactions, we might need to consider alternative interventions." The world around me blurred again, an image of Elena sleeping peacefully, dreams entwined with pain, flashing before my eyes. I couldn't breathe. I needed her laughter, her love, the way she held my hand when shadows loomed. How could I fight for her without the truth? How could I save her if her very essence was wrapped up in unspoken fears? "Eric, I have to go," I said, the urgency to act clawing at my very being. "I can't let this time slip through my fingers." "Wait, keep me posted, okay?" I might be able to help, but I had already hung up, my heart propelled forward. The urgency of our conversation surged through me, demanding action. So many luminaries shone around Meth, young man and the woman who had volunteered their blood, the elderly neighbors rallying their community, but I was left grappling with shadows. The nurse I had spoken to earlier approached me as I gripped my phone, her expression serene yet knowing. "Everything all right?" she asked gently. "Not exactly," I responded, a tremor within my voice threatening to surface. I could feel the walls closing in, my mind a jumbled puzzle of worry and what-ifs. I need to know what Elena's medical history consists of. I think it might be critical. Her eyes widened with empathy. I understand, she said, reaching for my hand as a gesture of comfort. If necessary, we can obtain her records. But it may take time. You need to focus on staying strong for her. I don't know if I have strength left, I admitted, my breath hitching. The thought of losing control, of being tossed into despair without the tools to fight, loomed large. Sometimes, strength is found in the connections we make, she offered, squeezing my hand. You're not alone in this. You have people who care. I nodded, her reassurance a brief salve on the rawness of my heart. As I stepped back into the waiting area, a wave of recognition washed over me, each long moment a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. The neighbors I had spoken to earlier were gathered in quiet strength, holding hands, their faces a tapestry of shared commitment. Hey! The young man I had met waved, his smile warm despite the anxiety that lingered in the air. They're prepping us in the back. Well, make sure it's done quickly. I felt the rising tide of gratitude once more, an unexpected camaraderie. Lifting my spirit. Thank you, really. I can't express. Don't, he interrupted, his eyes steady. We're all in this together, right? A flicker of hope ignited anew, so fragile yet flickering steadily against the backdrop of despair. I gathered closer to the group, feeling the vibrancy of solidarity wrapping around me, a physical manifestation of the community I had thought lost to me. In each face, I saw the possibility of healing, not just for Elena but for all of us navigating this murky sea of anguish. But as moments passed and tension coiled tighter, my phone buzzed again, breaking through the thick atmosphere. I fished it out to see a notification from Eric, meet me. I found something else about Elena. A knot churned ominously in my gut. I was teetering on a precipice, standing amidst newfound strength while the ground beneath me seemed to shift menacingly. What else could there possibly be? I wondered aloud as the whispers of fear took hold. With a determined breath, I turned back toward the nurse, ready to gather the fortitude to foremost confront the truth. As I slowly walked away from the gathering, the soft laughter and voices of hope mingling just behind me, an unshakable chill gripped my heart. What was Eric about to reveal, and could it break not only my own heart but the very fabric of the love I shared with Elena? The uncertainty loomed like a storm cloud overhead, waiting to unleash its torrents. The hallway stretched before me like a long, winding road, each step heavy with anticipation and dread. My heart hammered against my ribcage as I made my way toward the small cafe where Eric had insisted we meet. The scent of coffee and pastries wafted through the air, mingling with an invisible undercurrent of anxiety. Each footfall echoed the enormity of what was about to unfold, and an internal battle fought for dominance. Hope battled against the impending dread gnawing at my insides. I found Eric seated at a table in the corner, a small fortress of documents arrayed before him. The sight of him, brow furrowed, eyes downcast, sent a shiver of apprehension down my spine. This was a man who had never failed to protect those he cared for, yet today, his presence felt like an omen. I slid into the chair opposite him, the wooden seat creaking under the weight of impending revelations. Hey, I said, trying to infuse my voice with strength I barely felt. Thanks for coming. His voice was steady, but there was an underlying tremor that betrayed his calm demeanor. He glanced around as if checking for eavesdroppers before leaning in. You should know I took a deeper look into everything. The files I found mentioned something about Elena's family. I swallowed hard, my mouth suddenly dry. What do you mean? Eric's eyes darkened, burdened with the weight of his words. Her mother, she had complications, too. Different condition, but it's mentioned here something that could be hereditary. The doctors thought her mother's blood problems were solely due to environmental factors, but I'm beginning to think it wasn't just that. I clenched my fists. You're saying it might run deeper than we thought? Is that what you're getting at? Exactly. If Elena has inherited something from her mother, it could explain her bogus rejection of treatment. He gestured at the papers spread out before him, his fingers trembling slightly. These could tie into everything: her symptoms, her reactions, it all seems interconnected. My thoughts spiraled, a cacophony of memories clawing at me. I remembered Elena speaking with reverence about her mother, a woman whose spirit shone as brightly as the sun, yet had succumbed to the shadows of illness long before her time. An overwhelming wave of guilt surged through me. How could I have been so unaware? So unseeing? She must be terrified, I whispered, moments of her holding back tears flashing before my eyes. Eric reached across the table, his hand resting gently over mine. We need to be careful with this information. If she hasn't told you, it's likely because she thinks you'll bear the weight too. Betraying her trust isn't how I want to help her, I said, my voice quavering with emotion. But we can't pretend it doesn't exist. Then we approach it gently, but we need to know everything we can. That I nodded, steel and fire igniting within me. I would talk to her. I knew it was what had to happen, but the thought of Elena's anguished eyes sinking further into despair made my heart clench painfully. What if she blames herself? Or shuts down entirely? I can't lose her. Not like this. Eric's gaze softened, tears glittering briefly in the corners of his eyes. You won't lose her. You love her. That's a powerful thing. His words stirred something deep within me, a glimmer of hope, buried beneath layers of despair. I took a deep breath, squeezing his hand in gratitude. Thank you for doing this. For looking deeper, but Eric's expression hardened once more. There's still something else, he continued, his voice growing serious. There's been talk in the research community. I heard whispers Elena's rare blood type. There might be experimental procedures, unapproved treatments that could be risky. My heart sank. You think she's a candidate for one of those? Only if she's aware of the risks. She needs information first before she can make a decision. The thought of Elena, caught between the weight of her choices and the looming specter of despair, felt unbearable. Yet another layer of complexity that I couldn't grasp fully suffocated me in a haze of uncertainty. How can I help her make the right choice if she feels so lost? I murmured, desperation creeping in. Eric leaned back in his chair, taking a deep breath. You have to draw her in, give her the space to share wholeheartedly. She needs to know that even if these options are dangerous, she's not alone in this. A sudden commotion at the entrance of the cafe drew our attention. A figure burst in, breathless and frantic. It took a moment before recognition set in. Elena's father, his face drawn tight with anxiety and something deeper, an unshakable fear. Where is she? He gasped, his voice cracking on the words. I need to see Elena now. Every conversation I had envisioned blurred in a vivid moment of raw emotion. My hope teetered on the edge of collapse. The chaotic noise surrounding us melted away, the clamor of dishes and the murmurs of fellow patrons fading into a distant hum. The sight of her father, usually composed, now unraveling before my very eyes, threw my heart into a tempest. Ruiz! I exclaimed, rising to my feet. What happened? He looked between us, eyes frantic. It's not just her condition. There's something I need to tell you both. It's about her family, and it's big. You have to hear this now. The urgency in his voice ignited a fear I hadn't known until that moment. I felt the ground shift beneath me once more. What revelation awaited us, and could it alter everything once again? Just as I began to grasp the threads of hope, another storm loomed on the horizon, threatening to tear us apart with its weight. The cafe felt like it was spinning around me, the clinking of coffee cups and murmur of patrons fading into mere background noise as Mr. Ruiz's words loomed larger than life. I had expected a conversation steeped in vulnerability and raw emotion, but now there was a new tide twisting the atmosphere, drawing all of us into its undercurrents. Ruiz, what do you mean? Eric asked, his chair scraping against the floor as he stood. The sudden urgency in his voice amplified the quiet chaos of my own thoughts. Elena's father ran a trembling hand through his hair, the panic etched on his face like a map of despair. I don't have much time to explain, but I need you both to listen. It's about Elena's heritage. It's more complicated than we ever thought. My stomach sank, already anticipating the weight of what was to come. I motioned for him to sit, my instincts kicking in as I fought the rising tide of anxiety. Please, sit down. You're scaring me. He slid into a chair, his hands clasped in front of him as though grappling with invisible chains. I should have told you sooner. I was terrified of how it would change things. You see, our family, we have a secret. Generations of it. I thought we had put it behind us. Barrick and I exchanged fearful glances, the suspense palpable as Mr. Ruiz struggled to find the right words. There are genetic conditions that have plagued us. I saw the records, the tests Elena was given when she was younger. They were all leading us to this. Leading us where? I pressed, my voice barely above a whisper as dread settled in my chest like a stone. There's a lineage of blood disorders, and they could be affecting her health, but there's something else, something darker. He hesitated, swallowing hard as he braced himself against the inevitable fallout of his revelation. There's a family history of psychiatric disorders. They didn't show until late in life. I was afraid that the truth would crush her. Elena's frail image flickered in my mind, her laughter, her love, but now it became a canvas painted with shadows. I felt like I was losing hold of her reality in real time, my heart racing impossibly fast as Mr. Ruiz's words seeped into my consciousness. That's why she doesn't want to talk about her family. I gasped, realization slamming into me with the force of a train. She knows, doesn't she? She's afraid of becoming her mother or worse. That I thought we had broken the cycle, he said, brokenly. But I was wrong. I failed her. I thought shielding her from this burden would help bolster her spirit, he confessed, his voice cracking under the weight of his emotions. But I see now how wrong I was. Despair threatened to crush me under its weight, but as hope flickered like a candle's flame, I felt the embers stoke inside me. We can still tell her together, I urged, grasping for a thread of certainty. She needs to hear it from you. She won't feel alone. Her mother was always so strong, Mr. Ruiz mumbled, tears glistening in his eyes. But maybe beneath that strength, she was hurting. I can't let Elena go through that, and we want. Eric interjected, his resolve sparking in the tears that pooled in his own eyes. But every choice she makes shows she handles this. It's going to depend on how we present it. She has to know we're here with her. The three of us sat in silence for a moment, the tightly wound tension slowly unraveling as I tried to quell my own rising fears. Suddenly, I felt a strange burst of warmth envelop me, unexpected kindness from within as I realized that even in this tempest, we weren't standing alone. Mr. Ruiz shared a profound pain, and while our burdens felt heavier than we had anticipated, they were now shared. Moments later, the cafe door swung open, and an air of uncertainty slipped in with it. The sight of a nurse stepping into the bustling space sent my pulse racing again. She scanned the room before her gaze locked onto us, her expression urgent yet calm. Excuse me, she called, her voice carrying over the din of chatter. I'm looking for Elena Ruiz. It's an emergency. My heart dropped once again, the fabric of my composure unraveling as I stood on the precipice of dread, a double-edged slicing through hope. What happened? I croaked, desperate for clarity through the mist of fear. The nurse rushed toward us, her demeanor shifting into something serious yet reassuring. She collapsed a few moments ago. We're doing everything we can, but every word she spoke felt like dragging an anchor up from the depths. I froze, my breath hitching in my throat as the enormity of the moment swallowed me whole. Is she okay? Will she be okay? I implored, clinging to the dim flame of hope that flickered precariously before me. She hesitated, and in that damning silence, I felt the world screech to a halt. We're uncertain of her condition at this time. But she needs you both. She's asking for you, please, I whispered, gripped by a fear I hadn't anticipated. Let's go. Right now, Damar. Ruiz rose, his usual calm shattered as he took my hand in a vice-like grip, erasing whatever hesitation may have lingered. We will face this together, he vowed, determination swirling in his gaze. As we moved to follow the nurse, anticipation and dread intertwining in a harsh embrace, I couldn't shake the feeling that the battle we were about to face would change everything more than I could possibly prepare for. Each step I took towards the unknown twisted my heart anew, a mixture of fear, hope, and the burden of knowing that the truth was lurking just out of reach. What awaited us in that sterile hospital room was not merely a pivotal moment in our lives but another labyrinth to navigate, filled with love, secrets, and the choice Elena would face. The bright fluorescent lights of the hospital echoed my racing heartbeat as we hurried through the sterile hallways, urgency flooding every step. Mr. Ruiz's grip on my hand was a tether in the chaos, his fear mirrored my own, churning in my stomach like a storm. I could hardly comprehend the gravity of the situation. Elena was in danger, yet there was something inherently fragile about our ever-adjacent truths waiting to surface. As we approached her room, I felt the heaviness of dread settling over us like a suffocating blanket. The stark white walls and the faint beeping of machines felt almost alien, a harbinger of the impending reality that lay behind that door. I stole a glance at Mr. Ruiz, whose face was a mask of anguish intermingled with fierce determination. His daughter needed him. In that moment, he was the anchor, and I felt the need to anchor myself to him. The nurse swung the door open, revealing a dimly lit room where Elena lay surrounded by doctors and medical equipment. My breath hitched in my throat at the sight of her small figure, pale, fragile, like a delicate flower wilted by an unforgiving storm. I couldn't reconcile the vibrant woman I adored with this unresponsive body in the bed. I whispered, horrified, my heart racing even faster. "Please, don't let it be too late. Everything will be fine," the nurse reassured, though there was something in her voice that was less than comforting. "We're doing everything we can." "Where's her doctor?" "I need to speak with, please," the nurse urged, stepping aside to let us in. "You can talk to her after we stabilize her. For now, we need to work." My mind felt like it was spiraling, the weight of it all anchoring me down. I stepped into the room, and the doctors glanced up, acknowledging us without a word. I felt helpless as I stood by Elena's side, desperately wanting to take her hand but fearful of what I might feel, fearful of what if she wouldn't respond. "She can hear you," the nurse said gently, sensing my hesitation. "Talk to her." Within moments of these words echoed around me, I found my voice. "Elena," I began softly, as if uttering her name would conjure her back to life. "I'm here. Please hold on. You're stronger than this. We need you." Mr. Ruiz stood beside me, his expression both stricken and hopeful. "Elena, I'm so sorry I should have told you sooner. I want to be there for you. We can face this together." A flicker of movement caught my eye, and my breath caught in my throat. Her fingers twitched slightly, a small but profound sign, and I grabbed her hand, holding it tight. "Stay with us, please. You're not alone," I cried, tears spilling down my cheeks as I fought the urge to break down completely. What felt like hours passed in seconds, and while the hum of the machines continued their relentless tune, I thought back to the fragile beauty of our time together, the warmth of her laughter, the comfort in her presence. You never realize how precious the simplest moments are until they hang by a thread. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a tall doctor entered, face drawn and serious. My breath caught again as he surveyed the room and focused on Elena. "Family?" he asked, scanning us. "We need to discuss her condition." Now my heart sank deeper into my chest, dread curling within me anew. Is she going to be okay?" I blurted out, desperate for a lifeline. "We're doing our best," he replied, his eyes shifting from the monitors to Elena. "But we're facing some complications. We'll need to perform some tests, and it's essential that we monitor her closely. Her family history could play a critical role in her treatment moving forward." The gravity of those words felt like a stone dropped into the silence. I scanned Mr. Ruiz's face for a glimmer of hope, but all I found was despair spreading over his features like a storm welling on the horizon. "Damn it," he said suddenly, rage and sorrow converging in his voice. "All this time, I thought I could shield her from the truth. How could I have let it come to this?" The rawness of his emotion struck me, but even as I witnessed his collapse, I felt the hesitant bonds of connection forming between us, intertwined with our love for Elena. Then a silence fell, heavy with inevitability, until the doctor spoke again. "Listen, there's something else we need to discuss. Elena may also need genetic counseling based on her history." The possibility of hereditary issues. My heart pounded as I absorbed the words. "Hereditary issues?" I echoed, my voice betraying the panic swelling inside. "Yes, and her mother's condition could affect her diagnosis," the doctor continued, cutting straight to the fear that clawed at my gut. We need to prepare for the possibility that this might not only be physiological but influenced deeply by her family legacy. Elena's laughter danced in my mind, an unbearable juxtaposition to the weight of illness and uncertainty. A million questions flooded my mind, and my heart ached as new revelations about her mother's past began to seep in, dark shadows creeping into the vibrant light of our memories. As the doctor began discussing further steps, my mind drifted, grasping for fragments of Elena's history while battling the dawning realization that we were all entangled in a web of inherited struggles. Mr. Ruiz's voice broke through my thoughts, sharp as glass. "Well, fight this. She will know the truth, and well, support her." Yet in that moment, enveloped in shadows and flickering machines, a new fear ignited within me as I processed our entangled pasts. This fight was not merely about saving Elena but also about confronting the darkness that had enslaved her, familiar confrontation that could break or bind us forever. The room felt impossibly small as the doctor continued, but my thoughts drifted further still, connected to a pulse of dread that was always just beyond reach. And in the aftermath, as we steeled ourselves for the storm ahead, I felt resolute yet unsteady. "Whatever comes next," I whispered to Elena's still body, hoping she could hear. "Well, face it together. You're not alone." The moment hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truths, as the promise of love, fear, and heartbreak intertwined in a labyrinth we were only beginning to navigate. Just as the doctor opened his mouth to speak again, the lights flickered ominously, plunging us into semi-darkness. There was a sudden commotion outside, confusion erupted, voices raised in alarm, and my heart plummeted at the thought that our struggle was only beginning. That I clutched Elena's hand tighter, holding on with every ounce of my strength, knowing that the next turn could change everything. The lights returned to full brightness with a harsh flicker, and the commotion outside seemed to dissipate just as fast as a sudden storm passing through. My head swam with thoughts of Elena, her stillness nestled with the hum of life support machines, contrasting against the urgent chaos outside. I wanted to turn toward the door, to glimpse the source of the distraction, but my focus remained tethered to her. The ensuing silence enveloped us like a thick fog. "Just stay with us, please," I repeated, almost to myself. The room felt simultaneously too small and impossibly vast, carrying the weight of our collective fears. "Can I see her?" a voice asked from behind me, drawing my attention away from her limp hand. I turned, scanning the doorway, and was met with a young woman who looked both apprehensive and determined. Her dark hair framed a worried face that mirrored my own turmoil. It was evident she cared deeply, yet something about her watchful demeanor sparked curiosity. "Who are you?" Mr. Ruiz asked curtly, his voice carrying the protective instinct of a father desperate to shield his daughter from any further harm. "That I am Sophia," she replied, inching closer despite the tension. "A friend of Elena's from college. I heard what happened." Her breath caught as she glanced at Elena, then back to us. "I wanted to help Demar." Ruiz exchanged a wary glance with me. "Help how?" "This is a hospital. There's nothing you can do here." Sophia hesitated. "I know this is difficult, but I have some information. It might not be much, but Elena confided in me about her health, about her family. I think there are things you need to know." Her voice trembled, but her resolve was palpable. "What are you talking about?" I asked, my heart racing anew. "If you know something, no." Mr. Ruiz interrupted, a look of protective defiance overtaking his features. "We have to focus on the doctors right now. This is not the time for withheld truths." But it was true. The shadows of Elena's family legacy loomed over us at that moment, and no matter how hard we fought against the rising tide of uncertainty, we couldn't ignore the reality anymore. My thoughts bounced between Mr. Ruiz's trepidation and Sophia's desperate plea for us to open our minds to new possibilities. "Speak," I urged Sophia before Mr. Ruiz could silence her. She took a shaky breath, the fear evident in her eyes. Elena often talked about her mother's health issues when we were in college, but there were small things she never mentioned, details about how her mother passed away and what her family had gone through. She didn't want anyone to know because she felt ashamed. She thought she could escape it. Sophia's hands interlocked tightly in front of her, betraying her own fear. My heart sank once again, and I glanced at Mr. Ruiz, who was staring at Sophia with a mixture of disbelief and dread. "You think this legacy is connected with what's happening now?" he asked, voice breaking slightly. "Yes," Sophia whispered, tears brimming in her eyes. "I believe it is. And I think she needs to know. If she survives this, she has to confront the truth of her family's past, or it may consume her." That I considered her words, feeling the heaviness settle in my chest. Part of me felt anger rise at Elena for hiding from her reality, but another part understood the instinct to shield oneself from pain. She had fought all her life, I'd seen that fire in her spirit. But what if that fire was dampened by the weight of undisclosed sadness? The doctor had fallen silent, likely waiting for the tension in the room to disperse before continuing with the delicate discussions on next steps. I caught a glimpse of his expression briefly shifting from focused professionalism to something softer, almost sympathetic as he watched the small turmoil unraveling before him. "Listen to me," I finally said, addressing both Mr. Ruiz and Sophia. "If there's even the slightest chance that what Elena faced in her past could have played a role, then we need to understand it. For her sake, we need to connect the pieces. We owe her that demar." Ruiz's demeanor shifted, revealing the internal struggle that mirrored my own. As a father, he wanted to protect Elena from everything, successes and failures alike, but I could see the wisdom in my words slowly resonating with him. His features fell, a softening mask melting slightly under the soft light of realization. "You're right," he said finally, his voice shaky but resolute. "We need to do this." Sophia nodded, relief washing over her as the air in the room shifted. "If we can help her understand, she might find the strength to fight through this." As we began to discuss a plan, the room itself seemed to hold its breath, anticipating the next wave of emotional turmoil that was certain to come with unveiling Elena's familial shadows. The door swung open once more, this time a nurse standing there with an urgent expression. "Mr. Ruiz, we have an update on Elena." His face etched in worry and determination. He turned to me, holding my gaze for a brief moment, a silent pact made in the understanding of what lay ahead. But just as the nurse began to speak, a loud crash echoed down the hall, followed by voices rising in urgency and fear. I spun back to the doorway in time to see two security guards rushing down the corridor, their faces set with concern, while other staff members hurried in the opposite direction. "Something's wrong," I whispered, dread creeping back into my veins. Before I could think, the nurse's phone rang, cutting sharply through our chaos. Her eyes widened as she answered it, exchanging rapid words, and then abruptly she turned to us. "Everyone, you need to stay here. There's been an incident in the hospital. We need to." But her words were drowned out by a hollow thud, reverberating through the walls. My heart raced. The world outside Elena's room had suddenly transformed into an unknown battlefield, and I knew in that moment we had no idea what kind of terror lurked just beyond the sterile walls. As the power flickered again, plunging our space back into darkness, the sound of rising panic grew nearer, leaving us trembling on the precipice of whatever storm awaited us next. As the terrifying sound surged through the dimly lit hallway, an indescribable sense of foreboding settled in the pit of my stomach. The flickering lights danced ominously, mocking our desperate efforts to grasp onto any semblance of control over this chaotic moment. I could see the tension etched into Mr. Ruiz's features as he turned toward the nurse, as if hoping for answers that would never come. "What do you mean, an incident?" His voice trembled slightly, revealing the thin veneer of his steadfastness. The nurse, a woman with dark circles under her eyes that suggested fatigue, looked back at us with a mixture of urgency and dread. "There has been a critical situation in the pediatric ward. Security is responding, but we need to keep everyone in the vicinity safe. Please, remain calm, Elena." The thought of her lying there vulnerable, unable to defend herself against whatever was unfolding outside, swept away the last shreds of my rationality. My heart raced, fueled by adrenaline and fear. Sophia's hand found mine, squeezing tightly in solidarity, grounding me amidst the rising panic. "Do you know what's happening?" she whispered, her voice barely steadied against the backdrop of chaos. I shook my head, not trusting my own ability to voice my fears. Instead, I shifted my gaze to the shadows shifting beyond our doorway, watching as staff and security scattered, their determined faces caught in the dimness. Anxiety pricked at my mind, and I felt helpless watching as an invisible storm brewed just outside the fragile safety of our little enclave. "Stay alert," Mr. Ruiz said resolutely, reverting back to his protective stance. "Let's try to focus on what we can do for Elena, no matter what." The tension in his voice flickered between determination and despair, and as I watched him, I realized that even he was beginning to question the sanctity of his resolve. The walls of this sanctuary, filled with hope for Elena's recovery, were slowly being breached. Hours passed, each tick of the clock echoing ominously as we remained suspended in uncertainty. Sophia and I clung to a thin thread of comfort as we exchanged quiet murmurs about Elena's life, piecing together fragments of her past that we hoped might weave together a narrative strong enough to withstand whatever lay outside. "What if it's connected?" Sophia mused softly, breaking the silence that threatened to suffocate us. "What if the turmoil outside the incident mirrors the turmoil within Elena's own battles? Maybe, just maybe, this is all linked to her health and whatever is happening out there." The idea struck a chord. I clenched my fists, desperation rising within me. I had to do something. I had to find a way to ensure that Elena would be protected from whatever darkness threatened to shatter us. Perhaps if we can uncover more about her family's past, we'll be equipped to help her fight against everything, I said, my thoughts racing. Mr. Ruiz looked up sharply, an idea kindling within him. "There must be medical records, or even family history somewhere in the hospital. If we can pull any information together, maybe we can illuminate the truth that's been hidden from her before it's too late." As we whispered ideas, a sudden commotion erupted outside, louder now as shouts pierced through the air, and the lights flickered once again, casting an eerie glow across the room. The faint sound of frantic footsteps echoed, growing ever closer like an impending storm. My heart pounded with each rapid beat, and just as it felt like time had stretched endlessly, the door flew open. A doctor, face ashen, stumbled inside. "We need to evacuate this wing," he gasped, panic lining his expression. "There's been a breach in security, and we don't know if they're coming this way. You have to move now." Ruiz's eyes flashed with fierce resolve, his protective instincts kicking in full force. "What about Elena? We can't leave her." "There's nothing we can do," the doctor started, but Mr. Ruiz cut him off. "No. We're not leaving her behind." His voice boomed, a fervor igniting within him that I couldn't help but admire and fear. As if the universe answered in a tragic twist, a technicolor scream sliced through the chaos outside, followed by a rush of footsteps, heavier now, almost like a stampede. In the frail moments that followed, frozen in time and space, I could see panic dance in the eyes of each person in the room. "I'll get her," I found myself saying, the determination rising like a wildfire within. "I'll stay and get Elena while you all get to safety." Both Mr. Ruiz and Sophia turned to me sharply, fear mingling with gratitude in their expressions. "No," Sophia gasped, "you can't." But I couldn't bear the thought of leaving her alone, abandoned to face the chaos that churned just outside her door. "I can't let anything harm her," I insisted, my heart racing with a mix of fear and resolve. "I'm going. I won't let her fight this battle alone." In that moment, I summoned every ounce of courage I had. Because beneath the surface of fear, I felt the undeniable tether pulling me toward Elena, the undeniable realization that the in-between wasn't just a matter of survival, it meant fighting for love against every darkness that threatened to tear us apart. As I rushed toward the door, a sudden crash erupted, and the lights flickered out entirely, plunging us into darkness. My heart thundered in my chest as shouts erupted from beyond, panic spilling into the void where hope strived to shine, and that was when I caught the unmistakable sound of a familiar voice, laced with fear and vulnerability, breaking through the chaos calling out her name. "I need help, Elena." My breath caught in my throat, and the world around me narrowed down to that single plea, a desperate call resonating deep within my Gooser fight was far from over, and in this moment, it was up to me to uncover not just the truth of her past, but the strength that dwelled within our love that nothing, not even the darkness outside, could extinguish. The darkness wrapped around me like an unwelcome embrace, swallowing every flicker of hope. Heart pounding, I propelled myself through the door and into the chaotic corridor, determined to reach her. Elena! I shouted, my voice lost in the tumult of panic and confusion. I dashed deeper into the mayhem, desperately searching for the one light that could guide me through. As I veered right, I spotted a group of nurses barreling down the hallway, their faces set with urgency. What's happening? I yelled, lungs burning beneath the weight of my fear. Lockdown protocol, one of them squeaked, breathless. There's been an ongoing breach, we're evacuating the patients. Evacuation. I felt my heart sink. No. Elena, I can't leave her here. Before they could respond, I spun away, racing against time and terror. I could hear my breath echoing in my chest, drowning out the cacophony of alarm bells and frantic voices. I was closer to her. Hold on, Elena. My voice broke through the shadows, and I plunged into her room, the light cutting through the darkness, revealing the fragile figure lying within. "I'm here," a figure emerged beside her, frantic and flustered. It was a doctor, eyes filled with disbelief as he rushed around monitoring her machinery. I grasped Elena's hand, the warmth of her skin offering a flicker of comfort amidst the chaos. "Sir, you shouldn't be in here," the doctor shouted, but my resolve only hardened. "Bring her with us," I demanded, desperation punctuating my every word. "She needs to be moved to safety." He paused, torn between medical protocol and my plea, and for a moment, I thought he might yield. But just then, the alarms blared louder, the hairs on my neck prickling with urgency. "We don't have time. Let me help you," I insisted, my voice cracking. I couldn't think of anything else but her safety. The doctor looked into my eyes, hesitating. It was a moment of indecision, a point on the cusp of a decision that could change everything. "If we can stabilize her first, we need to make sure she knows." I cut him off. "We have to get her out now." The battle within him waged on until he finally sighed and turned to the monitors. "Fine. But you must be aware that moving her without consent or stabilization is dangerous." "Anything is dangerous if she's left alone," I shot back, urgency blazing in my veins. "Do it." Swiftly, he began unhooking wires and equipment as my hands moved to wrap around Elena, and in that moment, I felt the bond of our connection surge, filling me with newfound determination. I couldn't carry the world on my shoulders, but I could carry her, and that would be enough. "On 3, he said, nodding to the nurses who hurried in. 1, 2, 3. With that, we shifted her onto a gurney, the rhythm of our motions synchronized by necessity. I gripped her hand tightly, wishing upon a prayer that she would respond as if my strength alone could pull her from the precipice of despair. "Hold on, love," I whispered again, tears pooling at the edges of my vision. Her eyes fluttered but didn't open. Fear pierced my heart, the impending unknown looming over us, but I refused to let it consume me. As we entered the hallway, panic surged like a tidal wave around us, the urgency of security personnel shouting orders blending with the cries of nurses. "This way!" I yelled, feeling a palpable sense of purpose that ignited through every fiber of my being. I forced myself to remain focused, avoiding every instinct that told me to spiral into dread. Each stride breathed life into my conviction that we would not only escape this storm, but we would emerge united, stronger than before. Then, amid the hectic chaos, I heard it again, Elena's voice, like a whisper of air brushing against my soul, calling out. "Help me, stay with me, Elena." "I'm right here," I urged, all the while holding tightly to her hand, trying to channel everything I felt for her. Suddenly, just as we rounded the corner, I saw them. Shadows creeping into the hospital, figures cloaked in uncertainty, their faces obscured from view. My heart raced. Were they friend or foe? I glanced at the doctor, whose face paled, but it was all too late. They were within reach. I stepped between them and the gurney, squaring my shoulders as I shouted, "Back off. You will not touch her." Fear had turned into my ally, fueling my resolve. But before I could act, one of the figures stepped forward, revealing a familiar face. "Enough, we're here to help," they said, lowering their hood. "David?" It was my brother, his face etched with worry. In a heartbeat, I felt the tide shift. "Where's Elena?" "Safe," he assured, stepping to my side. "We heard the commotion and came to assist. We need to evacuate now." The doctor hesitated before relenting, and just like that, we were swept into a current of urgency as we maneuvered down to the exit, past shock and threat. It was a corridor flanked with light and shadows, but I felt the anchor of my love driving me. "Stay with me, stay present, love," I whispered, ensuring my grip never faltered. My heart throbbed for her, and even as the fears of our past loomed large, I sensed hope blooming from the depths of despair. With every step, I felt a newfound warmth coiling in the corners of my heart. Not only was I fighting for her, but she was fighting for us too, for the love that stretched across time and space, defying the darkness that threatened to engulf the very definition of our relationship. I'd faced shadows before, but this time, I wasn't alone. I wasn't just an observer in my life, I was a fighter willing to dive into the depths of pain for the sake of love. And as we breached the exit, fresh air flooding my senses with vitality, I knew we would conquer this, fight this, embrace the unknown together. It wouldn't just be her struggle, our souls intertwined meant I would stand at her side, no matter how fierce the winds would blow. "Elena," I murmured fiercely, squeezing her hand. "We're almost there. Just a little further. We'll fight this together. You and me." Her eyes fluttered again, and in that moment, I felt a spark, her essence flickering back into being. "I'm here, I'm with you," I promised, the warmth of unconditional love wrapping around us like a protective cocoon that we stepped into the light, the chaos of the world behind us, leaving the darkness behind. I would carry her through every storm, standing strong against anything that dared to divide us, because with love as our compass, we would forge a path toward healing that in our shared breaths, amidst the flurry of voices and sirens, I felt that unmistakable connection, a promise unbroken, a bond forged in the fire of adversity. No matter what happens, we will always be enough. And among the swirling storm of uncertainties, one thing remained clear: we had each other, bound by love, igniting our fight into something that would transcend even our darkest fears.